Okay, gang, we are recording. I am super excited to welcome some of the most amazing women I have in my life. We have Lorelei Ignatz, who you've met before in a really cool interview where she talked about avoiding getting carjacked. Go watch that because she's a badass. We also have Alyssa Orber and we have Mary Beth Blakely, who are all badasses. Sorry, I don't have any carjacking stories, but I have other stories for these ladies. And I just want to give a quick intro for everyone as a group. These are folks that I met when I started out as a clinic escort, which means walking patients from their car door to an escort to a healthcare clinic. And that means walking them through the gauntlet of screaming anti-choicers, terrorizing, harassing, physically blocking their path. Everything I've learned from the folks that you see right here. There's also a few other folks that I would love to have had included on this as well. But these folks right here are amazing. Listen up to what they have to say, because the reason I gathered them on this call is because I wanted to talk about what's next after the overturning of Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision. Asphalt Anthropology is all about folks claiming space that they have been told that they should not claim, that they should be home after dark, that they should walk around with a buddy. And I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm saying there's a lot more to a skilled existence than that. And it really starts with bodily autonomy. So with that, I really want to turn it over to the fantastic folks we have gathered today. And where do you all want to start? Do we want to talk about how people can help with escorting? Do we want to talk about protecting one's own personal safety in this? Where do you guys see this starting?
That's it. Go ahead. I was just going to speak randomly.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say maybe we should start with the personal stuff and then get into how people can help later on.
Okay, cool. Where do you want to start with that?
So you know that I'm like a huge nerd for everything that you do, especially taking all of those classes where I'm obsessed with the gift of fear. So like anything you want to talk about, I'm excited about.
Okay, cool. So what I'm hearing is like starting with kind of like, what can I as an individual or anyone listening to this, what can I do to keep myself safe? So look, I'm 51 years old. I've had a hysterectomy. I'm fine. Y'all can't touch me with this stuff. So I guess for me, it's really about how I can serve others or how if I'm supporting other people in those situations. But let's talk about women who are at risk of having the law come down on them for needing to have health care.
For sure. Well, as of right now, and everyone else, please correct me, because these facts literally change by the day in terms of like what judges and what states are blocking what bans. And by the way, I'm Lorelei. I should have said that, start off with that. Pronouns are she, her. In terms of like volunteer activist work that I'm doing on the ground right now, I'm a practical support volunteer with Access Reproductive Justice, which I really encourage everybody to get. Visit their website, cough up some money their way. They are California's abortion funds, and they are right now the main abortion fund that is helping, kind of like manage and mitigate the influx of pregnant people who are coming from other states who need care and are seeking care in California. I think the states that are...
So for clarity, just to be clear, so if I'm living in Indiana or Ohio, I can still give money to this organization or any other organization and it still supports people in my community. Is that what you're saying? It's not just like,
yes.
Oh, I'm throwing that money at California. Okay.
Yes. Yes, totally. Ohio is one of the states that I believe has a total ban right now.
Yeah.
As does, I believe, Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota. MB, am I missing what?
And so Ohio, as of today, has a 6-week heartbeat ban. And those are, in a lot of respects, a total ban. There's a few states with that, but if you do realize that you are pregnant and you are in a state with a 6-week ban, go to a clinic ASAP, because you may by some miracle fall within the window of them being able to confirm pregnancy, but being before 6 weeks, be like, there's this, it's essentially like a few days a week, probably, and you could get a medication abortion. Also, a lot of clinics in
And
6 week states
hang
can.
on, if you could hang on 1 second. Is she breaking up for everybody else? Okay.
Sure.
So I just want to recap.
Sorry, I'm in a car.
Yeah, no worries. But what you were saying was so golden, and I just wanted to recap it to make sure people knew. Could someone recap what MB just said?
I got it.
Please.
What they were saying is, if you are in a state with a ban and you find out that you are pregnant and you are more than 6 weeks pregnant and you are in a state with a 6 week total ban, what a person could do in that situation is they could get a medication abortion in a different state. So for example, for a patient in like Ohio, which as of today has a 6 week ban, has a heartbeat ban, what a person might do if they found themselves in this position in Ohio is if they find out that they are pregnant before the 12-week mark, they could reach out to a clinic in a neighboring state or a fund in a neighboring state, like a Chicago abortion fund, or like a clinic in a neighboring state like Indiana, and figure out how to obtain safe medication abortion care in that state. And there are funds that are set up strategically across the country right now that provide volunteer work, practical support, financial support, and kind of like medical and procedural support in the way of like doulas, if you want that kind of support too, that can help you if you are in a state with a 6 week total ban, I think is what MB was saying.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm so sorry to have interrupted you, MB. It was such good information. We wanted to hear all the words, not just some of them. So I think what I'm hearing is the good news is just because you may be over that 6 week mark, there's still access, there's still support, there's still opportunities for you to get the healthcare you need. Okay. MB, you were going to say something else. Are you able to share that with us? Oh, bummer.
As a note, turning your camera off might help with the bandwidth.
Good point. While you're driving. Lorelei, your bandwidth's fine. Come back. All right. Well, what else do we have in that vein in terms of if someone's seeking healthcare? This is great news to know that if you're needing healthcare, that there's networks out there. And I'm going to put all like links in everything to show where that is. What else do we need to know if you're needing healthcare at any kind of time here?
I think an easy security measure that folks can take regardless of what state they live in, but especially if they're in a state that is looking like, there are going to be some legislations in the near future, or like perhaps a total ban, is to delete any period tracking apps that they have on their phones. Like go analog, like get a little like desktop calendar. They're so cheap right now at like every craft store, or do it, or keep like a calendar for it on your iCal and like another name. I myself have a reproductive health disorder that sometimes causes my periods to be like super irregular and my cycles to be super irregular. So I do need to because of my communications with my doctor, I do need to track my cycle. And sometimes, sometimes it does help to have like a place to put that. So if you absolutely need an app, like if you are like, I absolutely can't do it without an app, sure. Okay. If that's the case, if you're going to use an app, use Yuki, EUKI.
EUKI.
Mm-hmm. It, in addition to giving you an opportunity to track your cycle in a way that's like not as straightforward, like this is when I menstruated. It also offers information about medication abortion and how to safely manage one at home for yourself, and how to how to share that information with others.
That's a really good tip. That's one thing that's really frustrating, Lorelei, and that's why I've had to have the hysterectomy that I did. Some people just have health problems, and we have to track these things. And now it's putting everyone at risk, and it's really putting everyone on the line. But I think think we all knew that about this law that is very anti healthcare for women.
MB's dropping some wisdom into the chat. They said people should contact National Network of Abortion Funds for the fund or practical support effort nearest them. Yeah, National Network of Abortion Funds are absolutely the real MVPs. I believe their website is http.abortionfunds.org.
Okay.
And then none of us are info security experts. So thank you for that disclaimer, MB. But my friends who are recommend Signal for instant communication and Proton Mail for email. Oh, dank, I've never even heard of that. That's good to know, Proton Mail.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually what I was about to bring up, was using Signal. Please don't use Facebook for communications for anything. I need to get more information on this, but a journalist recently tried something out where they posted, like, does anyone need abortion pills? And it was removed within 1 minute. They posted, does anyone need a gun? And that was not removed. So information is, first of all, being taken off of Facebook, but also being monitored. And you just really have to be careful with what's going on with that. Facebook is just not a really safe place to be. Use
Alyssa,
Signal whenever possible.
And would you say that's true for the other social media platforms, or you specifically mean Facebook? Because I know Facebook owns Instagram, WhatsApp. What are your thoughts there?
I wouldn't do anything owned by Meta.
Right.
I wouldn't put anything on there. It's just not safe. Another thing I'm seeing around Facebook, though, that I want people to really be careful of I was just invited to a group of people that will help you go camping.
Oh, okay. God, thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, so camping is, for those of you who are not aware, they call camping a trip to any of the states that will still provide legal abortions. Don't do that. You don't know who these people are. There could be antis who are pretending to be there to help you. Come stay at my house, and God only knows what'll happen.
Yeah, because if I can interject, they've been doing that for decades, right? Like, they've had the fake clinics. This is an old strategy. So now there's just like new ways of doing it. Sorry, I wanted to underscore that.
No,
no,
please.
More details. So
this is just, by the way, I'm Jewish, and the way Jewish people talk is we constantly interrupt each other with more information.
Oh, good.
So like, this is how I normally have a conversation. I know that like other people might find it rude, but like popping in is how I talk. So it's fine.
Okay.
I did join a Facebook group, to be honest, to follow along to see what's happening with this camping, because I was like, oh, I'd better like follow.
Oh my God.
The infighting is intense. But there are groups that you can get in touch with, like Access. I'm wearing their t-shirt right now.
Access. Yay.
Yay. So there are a bunch of different groups that will help you find a place to get a procedure done if necessary, that have been doing this for decades. Everyone is vetted. You're safe there. Please try to get in touch with someone like that, or someone. Don't just, your parents taught you not to talk to strangers. Like, please just continue on with that. We don't know who these people are. I'm sure a lot of them mean well, and a lot of them really do want to help. And a lot of them in the confusion are just like, oh, I'm going to like throw it out there that I'm going to help. So I'm not saying they're bad people.
Right.
They're just maybe a little misguided and haven't been doing this work for a very long time. So they're not sure what the entire process is. But please do not go with someone on Facebook to get a procedure.
Well,
yes.
And I'm so glad you're talking about this because I'm on Reddit as well, and there's a network on there that connects people to if I need an abortion or healthcare. I just call it healthcare because it's freaking healthcare. But I'm
Yeah.
not trying to hide that it's abortion we're talking about. It's just so essential to me. So if someone's looking for that healthcare, then they can go on this what they call the anti-network, and I can like volunteer to drive them. And I'm like, well, how do I know on either side that's safe? Like maybe you're a cop coming to bust me because I'm giving someone a ride, or
That's
maybe
the thing.
Yeah,
That's
like,
you know, that's the thing. And like that's why I think when MB was saying, you know, reach out to National Network of Abortion Funds, they can put you in touch with your local abortion fund, your local practical support organization. Like that's what Access is.
yeah,
And you know, I think all three of us have done the Access training, and I think all three of us have also participated in like LA for Choice training. So like we know the extensive amount of vetting that has to go into everybody who volunteers in this space for not just patient safety, but like our own safety as well. You know what I mean? Like it's like, so I mean, it's just I'm so glad that Alyssa brought that up because it's something that has been really troubling to me as well. Like knowing that this like camping group has popped up on Facebook, because there are just like so many opportunities for people to get into situations that are unsafe, both like for the patient and for like the volunteer. I think that like people lose sight of the fact that like because a lot of these antis are like, you know, like cardigan knitting church ladies, and I say that with no disparagement towards knitters, having being in the middle of my first sweater myself, they forget that like they're straight up domestic terrorists in these people's ranks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's what's at stake when organizations need to vet their volunteers. That's why it's so important to go through these proper channels, not because like nobody wants to give you a turn being like the most feminist, you know what I mean? Which I feel like is like some of the vibe that I'm getting on social media too, which that's a whole other TED talk.
Wait, I didn't quite follow that. What did you mean by that?
I mean that like I do feel like there is a lot of, I question, there are a lot of people sharing that meme so that they can be seen sharing that meme.
Oh, yeah.
And when I give them more like information, when you give them information about like, hey, this is, if you want to help people go camping, here's an organization you can sign up with to get trained in how to help people go camping in like a tried and true way that's been developed by activists who have been here for decades, that's most compassionate for the patient. You know, you know, here is a way for you to go through a vetting and a process that keeps everybody safe to like help people camp. But like, no, they don't actually want to do that. They just want everyone to know that you can reach out to them on Facebook if you need to go camping.
Right. Got it. Well, and I think you really are both raising a really good point in that this has been a conversation and a battle that's been going on for decades. I know with the Dobbs ruling, it even with the leak, it's, and I'm not going to say it didn't affect like that day, but it's like, we shouldn't be fooled. These people who are anti-choice are very smart. This is the most credit I'm ever going to give them, but they're smart and they've been working on this for decades, and they are strategic and tactical, and like, you don't want to trifle with them. You've got to be smart. And people, I know people like to call, you know, oh, that side dumb. There's some dumb people there. There's the dumb foot soldiers that we've run into, but the strategy people are smart. So I love everything you're saying, because with the emotion, I know we all got emotional when the leak happened. We got emotional when any of those justices got appointed, and then we clearly got emotional when Roe got overturned for the Dobbs decision. And so like, it's like, oh, easy to get really emotionally pumped up and say what you're going to do, but like for the long-term health, my belief and what I feel like I've really learned from hanging out with you all is that it has to be kind of that really smart, vetted, strategic planning. So like, this isn't just a Band-Aid we're slapping on a problem that popped up. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And again, nothing against these people. I've been in this realm for 8 years and I still wouldn't call myself an expert by any means. So I totally get the want to, maybe if you don't know what the entire process is, you just think that jumping out and helping is the way to do it. And I don't want to shame anyone for wanting to help, but I beg of you, please find out the correct way to do it, because you're putting yourself in danger as well.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and if we can, this is kind of the same. Were you going to add something else, Lorelai?
No, I was just going to say that's an excellent yes, yes, yes. And I do not mean my tone to be shaming either. I should have said that, because
Not
that's
at all.
it's an important, I mean, it's a really important, I'm also not an expert. None of us are gatekeeping. It's just, that's a really important disclaimer. So I just want to support what Alyssa said and lift that up as well.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel as though you were shaming anybody. There are some people who are doing this that I do feel need to be shamed. Like if you are reaching out to them and saying, can you please do it this way? And they're like not taking that into account, then yeah, shame them. But for people who don't know any better, just they might think that this is the right way to do it and that their hearts are in it, but it's not safe for anybody involved.
Yeah,
in fact,
it really isn't.
And we want you, and we want that passion, and like, let's play together, because you're putting yourself at risk, as well as the patient, as well as, you know, these laws of like coming after you for aiding and abetting. Well, you know, like,
yeah, for sure.
You know, do any of us want to go to jail and lose our homes and like that kind of thing? So it's about, you know,
yeah, it absolutely is. And like, you know, it's also, we're obviously in a moment of chaos, right? And it's not going to get better. Like, we're 9 days out, and it's been just like fucking unbelievably chaotic in terms of like trying to shift resources and shift clinic availability to get like everyone the care that they need. From what I have heard, and I imagine that it's only going to get worse. So I think, you know, in this moment of chaos, I think it's really important for pregnant people who are in states that are trying to erect even more barriers between them and accessible care, to remember that like there are networks that exist that are prepared to help you. Like, there's National Network of Abortion Funds, there's Plan C pills, there's Women on the Web, there's Aid Access. Like, there are organizations out there that are vetted, that have been laying this pipe for years, that are ready to get you the care that you need. And I think the number one most important thing that people who want to support abortion access can do is figure out ways to support and bolster those existing networks, so that people aren't, you know, driving down to Mexico and getting misoprostol and getting, you know, incorrect advice on how to safely manage your care at home using that medication from like a Mexican pharmacist, which is actually happening, instead of going through, you know, your local doula collective or your local abortion fund, who can get you that information and help you do that safely.
That's one thing that really terrifies me, is some poor kid or poor person is going to go Google something and buy whatever comes up on the internet, and good Lord knows what they're going to ingest.
For sure. I mean,
really
Plan C pills and Aid Access are both like very, very verifiable ways to get information about abortion medication. I believe Hey Jane Health is as well. Okay. I think those are the three websites that I know of off the top of my head that are very, very trustworthy and verifiable. And I believe Aid Access works with physicians internationally to get around any sort of like aiding and abetting. Aid Access is Dr. Rebecca Gompertz, who is the Women on the Waves lady. Who
after we hang up, I'm going to text you just to verify I have all the names right, and then I'll put
for sure
links in here for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And she's also been doing this for years and years.
Okay, very cool.
Also, I do want to mention that just because an abortion is managed at home doesn't mean that it's unsafe. But just because they said you can do it on TikTok doesn't mean that you should do it. Like, if you just see someone sharing something like, hey, this tea can help induce an abortion, definitely do some research on that first before you just go for what someone, you know, blindly shared.
Right.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of like the internet and information you find on the internet, I would encourage folks who haven't done so already to use DuckDuckGo. Or another sort of browser that gives them a little bit of extra privacy, or Safari instead of Google Chrome. Be real careful with Google.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you remember Ask Jeeves?
I do.
Yes.
We're going to bring Ask Jeeves back.
We might.
I'm going to see if it's still running. Hold on.
Actually, we need to Ask a Doula. Can we have an Ask a Doula? And that's just its own search engine.
Oh man.
I'm a trained doula. I've been doing loss work for a while. I'm happy to help, but I wouldn't ask me for some of these things either. But
No, but as doula would be like a non, it would be a search
oh
engine that doesn't
yeah,
have all the flaws of like, even like the algorithms that just come up as super sexist and racist just because they don't know, right? Like that because of who they've been created by. I know that sounds like an extreme statement. I'm not saying people are intentionally doing that, but anyway, that's a whole other thing about AI and how it's, you know, bias is built in. So yeah, I want to ask a doula.
I just went to ask.com and all the big news is hot dog. Regional takes an American favorite for Independence Day.
Oh, of course.
Barbecuing. UAPs are the new UFOs and they're on Congress's radar, like nothing of any importance in the first 3 articles.
For context, so for the audience, we're filming this tomorrow is the 4th of July. So I can imagine the only thing people are talking about are grilling and hot dogs and and here we are talking about
the you know, scraping the char off of our civil rights.
Yeah. Got that one a little burnt. So what y'all were talking about in terms of the excitement's not the right word, the emotion, like, oh my God, I have to get out there and help. We've seen that actually as clinic escorts, and maybe we could talk a little bit about being an escort and like kind of tie those conversations together. So if someone could define or give a sense of what an escort is and what they do.
Sure, I can help with that. So we all met each other at LA for Choice, which right now is, I mean, it's shut down during COVID, sadly. But what we did as clinic access volunteers is we were those people in the vests that you would see. We would make sure that any anti-choice protesters were not getting onto the property. We were making sure that any patients going into the clinic, for whatever health reason they're going in, they felt safe. We made sure that no one was blocking the clinic doors as dictated by the FACE Act. We made sure that basically people were able to get the help they needed without feeling completely harassed as much as humanly possible. So what I would say was that I was a glorified babysitter for the anti-choice people. There's a lot of tantrums and screaming. And so there's a lot of learning how to separate yourself from what's going on around you and just completely focusing on making sure that patients were getting to where they needed to go. That's the simplest explanation. The things that happened to us were wild and completely varied. And there have been times that we've done things that were definitely outside of our scope of practice, like stopping someone from getting run over, things like that. But the general thing is making sure that patients are able to get into the clinic without being harassed as much as possible.
Right. And I just want to clarify, yes, we are in Los Angeles. This was happening in the suburb out of Los Angeles. People think, oh, California, oh, Los Angeles, everything's hunky-dory. That is not true. I'm not saying it's not probably worse and you know, fewer clinics elsewhere. But even when Roe was the law of the land, it was still very difficult, even in California, to get access without being harassed. So I'm not crying over the justices and the people outside their houses. I'm just gonna say.
Literally everyone who has ever worked or volunteered at an abortion clinic ever would like the word. Because I think, I'm pretty sure, I'm bad at math, but I'm pretty sure that all of us showed up for the first time before, like even before Mango and Change came to power. Like I remember my first day was towards the tail end of the Obama administration. And so like, even then in the middle of the Obama administration in like liberal Los Angeles, it was, things were still spicy. So, you know, and like you just said, Beverly, like I I'm pretty confident actually that other escorting organizations in other cities get it a lot spicier. So that's just, that's just that comparison right there, just laying that down right there. I will say quickly for folks who are listening to this in Southern California who are like, oh wow, LA for Choice, this sounds great. We are not up and running at the moment. Most LA for Choice, I'm not going to speak for most clinic escorting organizations like I'm an expert, but LA for Choice goes where we're invited. And we have not had a clinic reach out to us at this time and ask us for support. So I know that we're getting a lot of volunteer interest, and I know that we're getting a lot of, our social media feeds are getting a lot of new likes and follows and stuff like that, which is really awesome. But we are, again, for folks in Los Angeles who are interested in putting their bodies on the line and engaging in activism that way, we are encouraging everyone at this time to direct their energy towards volunteer efforts with Access Reproductive Justice in the practical support space.
Right. So we were like there at the, just in front of the doors, if you will. But what you're talking about, Lorelei, is the opportunity now for patients wherever they are. They may be in LA or they may be flying in from Texas or wherever, but giving them, can you talk about that? Giving them rides?
Sure.
Talk about that.
Yeah, being a practical support volunteer, what that can entail a bunch of different things. For me, I am a transit volunteer, so I provide transportation to patients who need rides to and from the clinic and wherever for their procedures. And that can be the Greyhound bus station, that can be LAX, that can be a patient's home, that can be a hotel, it can be a bunch of different things. I drive them, make sure they get to their clinic appointment on time. It's not necessarily like a requirement, but because I am also a clinic escort, like if I do see antis, I will often sometimes, I'll park and I'll help the patient into the clinic as well, because I just I have that, I still have that.
You've done that.
Emotional,
yeah.
Switch flips, you know what I mean? But you can also volunteer and sign up and get trained to volunteer with Access to provide housing or provide childcare to patients who are, coming in from out of state, or even patients who are local who need support. And that's how to become a practical support volunteer in California.
So question, so a lot of people who are going to be watching this, because I'm very much from the self-defense world and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of people who in this world or who have done third-party protection, who have, love to go and hit and punch things. But those skills are very different. And I can't underscore this enough, being an escort or being a technical support person is very different than, oh, I used to be a bodyguard for somebody, or I used to, that kind of thing. Could you talk about some of the differences, or if I could maybe just get it kickstarted, let's talk about non-engagement as an escort. And I'm going to guess, Lorelei, when you're walking with the person you may be driving, that might be something you apply. Can you talk about what non-engagement is and why it's important? And it's hard, why it's hard.
Yeah, it can be really hard. LA for Choice has a very clear, very, I would say pretty rigid non-engagement policy, meaning that we do not engage in any way, even making eye contact with anti-choicers, unless there is an extenuating circumstance, obviously. If they put a hand on you, you can absolutely say, don't touch me. I think, Beverly, I believe you've been in that situation. Alyssa, I'm pretty sure you were in that situation. But in general, we maintain a strict non-engagement policy with anti-choicers because we are there for the patients. And in my experience of being a clinic escort anyway, is you pretty much just have to focus on the fire that is immediately in front of you. And that is the fact that there is an anxious patient who needs to get healthcare, and she needs to move through all people of all genders need abortion care. They have to move through a crowd of screaming evangelical assholes to do it. Right. So, it's very much about the needs of the patient, and a patient is not going to feel calmer with their escort in a screaming match with an anti. A patient is not going to feel calmer knowing that they are flanked by two people who are throwing bows at the people who are screaming at them that they're about to murder their baby. That's not going to create a calm vibe in that situation. And the number one thing that we are there to do is make accessing healthcare for this patient as painless as possible, honestly, as comfortable as possible in what is admittedly, you know, a very vulnerable moment for every patient, whether it's an emotional experience for them or not. So that I think is why non-engagement is so important to me.
Yeah. And y'all, I've learned so much from you. Alyssa, what do you have, anything to add on that? On engaging, or how you engage? I mean, no, it's non-engagement, but like just how you experience the same space with people of this mindset.
For sure. So I used to run a lot of trainings for LA for Choice. And I will say that the way you react to people in the clinic versus like someone, when I'm helping someone as an abortion doula, it's entirely different. First of all, something that I always recommend to people when they're doing clinic escorting, wear mirrored sunglasses so they can't see where your eyes are going. Something I had to learn is I'm a face maker. If someone says something stupid, I make a face. Yeah. So I had to like really learn to like put on a poker face all the time, because they will be saying some things that are so outlandishly stupid.
Yeah.
That
and funny sometimes.
Oh, the stories we have of
God,
they've said.
And to the audience, I warned MB had to jump off. She was having some connectivity issues, but I warned Lorelai and Alyssa. I'm like, we're not getting into tactics because too many psychos can hear it, but we have stories. But what can you share? Yeah.
Just like absolutely the wildest things I've ever heard human beings say. Yeah, and really, they say it with such conviction,
their whole chest,
that you're like, oh no. But so you really have to learn how to do that versus when you're actually being supportive of someone. It's okay to really be more, I guess, soft and open and being a person. And it's hard to go back and forth between the both, because I've been doing clinic escorting for so long that when I'm in a clinic, I'm generally all business. But when you're doing something like what Lorelai does with driving them, or when you're supporting someone through a procedure, it's a lot different. It's a lot of really just being open and there for them, and really only turning that on if, like Lorelai said, she's bringing them in through the clinic and there are antis there. That's the only time you turn that on. When you're a volunteer, you have to be and actually dealing with the people going through the procedure, you have to be a lot softer.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And again, for people who are looking to help, please bring your energy. We need you. And there's a lot of emotional regulation that we have to do for ourselves. And I wrote an article that I passed around a few times. This was like early in my working with you all. And it was such a surreal experience where there was a woman who I was walking with who had a miscarriage the night before. And so they sent her to the clinic, the ER sent her to the clinic to complete the procedure of this natural abortion. I just want to say she had a miscarriage and she was getting screamed at, being called a murderer by the people, and the doors were freaking locked. And so she didn't want to wait in the back with the car, which is fine. Like she's in charge. And so I remember physically in my body as she's next to me, like there was this softness and like I was close to her. It was like very maternal or whatever. And the yokels yelling murderer behind me, I felt like just this steel spine. And it was just like, in my own physical body, two radically different experiences at the same time. And it was like, that was weird. It was just like soft and loving and caring. And like, I want to like kill you was what my back was like. There was like spikes coming out of it is the only way I could describe it. So Lorelai, you were talking about kind of that switch. And then Alyssa, you really kind of went in depth on that. What are some ways that we can practice? Like, how do you do that? It's hard. It's not something that comes easy. What are your thoughts there?
I gotta say, like, and I mean, Alyssa, feel free to disagree if you have a different experience. But in my experience of clinic escorting specifically, that the I'm not gonna say skill set, but the type of kind of like personality fabric that it takes to be a clinic escort is like not something that you can really learn. And non-engagement is a form of activism that is not for everybody. Like, I will say that, you know what I'm saying? So like, you know, all I'll say in LA for Choice, to just like lay down the most accurate analogy ever, is like, some of the people that I met at LA for Choice who took to non-engagement the fastest and who were really great at just like standing there and getting yelled at by like absolutely insane malignant narcissists, were fellow escorts of the entertainment industry. And I'll just let that lie right there.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, you know, I also know folks who, and I'm sure we all know folks who are or were military, who are great, who are great with non-engagement, who are great with clinic escorting. I know a lot of clinic escorts had, you know, just like had yellers in their families growing up. Like, you know, it is not necessarily like a skill set that some people like cultivate. It is a thick skin that you get. It is a thickening of the skin that you get through specific types of life experience. And most clinic escorts that I know have figured out ways to like put that to good use. So I'm just saying, if non-engagement, if clinic escorting, like if you're listening to this and are just like, that sounds insane, like I would want to just like take a blowtorch to these people, like that's fine. That doesn't mean that there are other ways to get involved that need that energy, frankly.
Absolutely.
Maybe not that exact energy, I'm just going to walk that back, but like, you know, that there are other ways to get involved that people who would really struggle with non-engagement would be great with.
I love that distinction, because we all can help in different ways. And for people who are going to do the frontline stuff, it does require a thick skin. It does require, like, you can't have like a temper. And like, if someone flips you off or calls you a name and that sets you off, well, then you're going to be terrible at this. And ultimately it's the patient who is unserved.
For sure. And it like absolutely doesn't mean you're a bad person or would be a bad,
thank you for
or would be like bad at repro activism. You know, like clinic escorting is like a very specific thing. That I think it just takes a real specific kind of personality management, or like a way of compartmentalizing your emotions, I will say. That is something that is learned behavior. Like, I don't know if you can teach that.
Got it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and something to be aware of, though, is what I always warned people was, even those of us who are great at what I was doing was definitely dissociating. I was just there and just not hearing. It was white noise at that point. But if you're in the situation that we were in every week, you do get tired, and even the person who's best with non-engagement can snap. So there's a lot of, when I talk about self-care, I don't mean it as like that, you know, Instagram going to the spa. I mean, take a week off for yourself from things like this to decompress. I mean, we've all had, I believe, fantasies about telling these people off in the worst way. We all have, but it can't happen.
Right.
And when you feel that fantasy maybe turning into something that's going to be a reality for you, take a break.
Yeah.
Because you're going to make it worse for the patients if you allow that to happen. And we're all human. We can only be abused so much before we snap. We're made to sort of fight against injustices that are coming towards ourselves. So it's okay to take a break if you feel like that's going to happen. But if you are someone who is very just naturally very confrontational, you're someone who has sort of a lower frustration tolerance, which is pretty common in a lot of people, it's just maybe not for you, but we can find something else.
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
definitely a lot of other things that you can help with. This is not the only way. There are hundreds of different ways that you can help.
I love that. Yeah.
A specific website where I've been directing a lot of people is exposefakeclinics.com, because something that's going to become increasingly important I think especially as more people are researching random neighborhoods in random states that they're unfamiliar with for care, is like being able to find an actual clinic instead of a CPC, which are evangelical organizations like designed to trick you out of getting an abortion, basically. And if you go to exposedfakeclinics.com, what you can do there without even leaving your house or like literally spending money on anything besides your monthly Wi-Fi connection and device that you use to connect to the internet, is you can write and or like reviews of fake clinics online that will fuck with their SEO, screw with their SEO, sorry, and affect how high they show up in Google search results. Okay. And that is something that's going to be increasingly important, because like when a patient from like Kentucky is researching like, you know, like Colorado abortion or something, or like ultrasound or something like that, like you want those results that show up at the top to be results for places that are going to help them get the care that they need without judgment. You want them to be real clinics, real medical organizations. So that is a little tiny form of online activism that you can do, like laying in bed at night when you're doing your nighttime doom scroll. Like you can do it, like I know people who are doing it on their lunch breaks. Like you can do it like low key. If your job sucks and you can get away with this without getting caught, you can do it sitting at your desk.
I love this because we spent the time talking about like escorting and like the challenges of that. But yeah, like you could do that and no one's screaming in your ear and like spraying their spit everywhere. And like you can still like really help that person. I love that. Very cool. I wanted to talk about, we have just a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to make sure we covered how do you manage your personal safety of your own being as well as that of maybe a patient that you're driving or working with? Lorelai, before the other folks got on, we had a little bit of chat about our appearance and things like that, but I would love to hear from both of you. What are some things you do to stay safe from the madness?
Yeah, well, you know, honestly, that is that's a conversation that I'm having with myself that is shifting in these new legislative environments. I was saying to Beverly before we all jumped on, for the past, like, I don't know, I guess at least 15 years, I don't know, I have had like My Little Pony hair. Like it's always a different color, but I'm always like, I'm serving treasure troll. Like it's just like, it's my vibe. And my hair is like kind of faded right now. And I told Beverly it's because at my next color appointment, I'm actually going to transition back to a normal hair color, because, you know, violence against clinic workers is on the rise. Violence against like patients is on the rise. I don't know. You know, who knows how the legislative landscape is going to change everyone's personal risk. And I just think a patient might feel the most comfortable in my car if I don't have a color hair that can be seen from space.
Right.
And it's also, I will be less conspicuous is all I'll say.
Yeah. And that's one thing is, and this is kind of just general safety and like however people want to carry themselves through the world is completely up to them. And if you make the more memorable you make yourself, the more memorable you make yourself. So right now my hair is purple and it's like, it's pulled back, but it's basically a mohawk. And so
it looks amazing.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
But it's pretty memorable, right? Like before this, it was just kind of like your average middle-aged lady like look, and that, which is way more like strategic and tactical, because like nobody, you know, was really expecting anarchy from middle-aged white ladies. But you know, so it's like this was a choice I made, and it works with things I'm doing now, but I have to make a different choice for all the reasons Lorelai just said. Alyssa, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so I'm someone who likes to remain as inconspicuous as possible at all times. So I will never wear, so when I'm going to something, I just wear plain clothes, no logos, nothing memorable, no political statements on them. I am, if you're in a state where you can, I have pepper spray on me at all times. My car has no bumper stickers.
Same.
It doesn't have any sort of fun license plate, anything.
No.
I don't want anyone to remember. My car looks like every other car.
Yep.
I try to just really not stand out as much as I possibly can. Yeah. And something really important is that you need to be aware of everything that's going on at all times. So something that I know we've talked about, Beverly, when I've been at your Asphalt Anthropology, like, what do you call them? Not a meeting, presentation. I don't know what you would call them. Super
Class.
fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Seminar.
Yeah.
Seminar. Thank you.
Seminar.
That's the word. I have a problem with remembering words sometimes. Thank you so much. Yeah, you don't want to be on the phone. You don't want to have headphones in. You don't want to be looking at something that you don't need to be looking at that moment. You want to be aware of everything around you at all times. And I try to practice that as much as possible. And if I miss something, like if I'm walking through a parking lot, someone walks past me and I didn't notice them, I'm like, oh, I failed. You know, like you just want to be super aware of everything and take care of yourself and the people with you as best as you possibly can. We're in a time where really the ego is not super important right now. It's really about survival. We have to go down to that id and what we have to do to survive. And I think that's the most important.
That's really an interesting observation, because it's almost like what you're saying is what we need is not ego, but that, like, there's such a narcissistic level happening. Like it's both are clashing right now. And so it's like, we really have to fight off that tendency, like, to post about everything.
Yeah, it's hard because posting about things also does help get the word out, right?
For sure.
What's that? Yeah.
So
what's that balance?
We really have to figure out what works. What you're posting, if what you're posting can get someone else hurt, please don't do that. Don't do that. If you're part of something, if you're part of a group like LA for Choice, we would have specific people who are designated to talk to the media. And if you are not one of those designated people, you just didn't. And since we are in LA and we had a lot of people in the entertainment industry, one of the meanest things that I would always say before each training is, this is not for your blog. This is not for your social media. This is not for an interview.
No, this is not a story for a general meeting.
Not for your brand.
Yep.
We would get a lot of influencers and people in entertainment who were looking to just get an article out of this. And that is not what this is for. It's great if you're someone who is able to, just do this for fun. That's great. But for some people, this is their entire community. This is their healthcare. This is really deeply who they are and what they need out of the community they're in. And it's not just something fun for people.
Yeah.
So if you can take this as seriously as it is for a lot of folks, please do.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I agree. And just to add to that briefly, as someone in entertainment, it is really annoying to see all that shit that Alyssa just articulated. I think that, like, for people who want to help, I think, like, and I say this with all the gentleness I can muster, which, if anyone knows me, is like really not much, actually, unless you're my cat. If you are somebody in this moment who really does want to help, I think that it's really important to examine, like, with honesty and without judgment, like, what that impulse is. Like, I know in the 9 days since Roe v. Wade alone, I've seen two different behaviors on social media. I've seen, like, sharing information about where to donate and how to help. And I've seen, like, how can I fold this into my brand? Like, by the way, here's my short film about this, that, or the other thing. And, like, by the way, like, or, like, all of a sudden, like, people I haven't heard from in forever hitting me up being like, hey girl, I hear you have, like, wild stories about clinic escorting. I'd love to talk to you about that. And I'm like, oh, you would? How funny. So I've seen two different responses. And, like, honestly, like, both are valid in their own ways, right? Like, I wouldn't have gone into this as a career if I didn't believe in art as activism. Do you know what I'm saying? But, the bottom line is, when we're talking about clinic escorting, and when we're talking about practical support, you are not the priority. Like, it is about the patient. Like, it is about somebody else's safety. And if your impulse in this moment is to be like, okay, how can I make this about my art? That's awesome. Like, that's valid. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say that's not valid. I am trying to say that, like, I don't know if that is the energy that is best directed towards practical support and boots on the ground patient care. I think that energy might be better directed towards, like, donating to abortion funds, or like canvassing for like local politicians. If electoral politics is your thing, who are, like raising awareness about like state legislative efforts. Like, I just think that it's a moment when everybody needs to just like get real about like what is driving their impulses and how they can best spin that to help patients. Because that is ultimately, for me, in my opinion, what it's about right now is helping patients access care when they need it, as quickly as they need it, as safely and affordably as they need it.
Alyssa.
Agreed.
My heart's full after that. What anything else to add to that?
No, I think that was really well said. Yeah, this is something that we do because we are really passionate about helping our communities, about healthcare, about rights that all human beings we feel are entitled to as human beings. If it's anything other than that, it might not be for you, but that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. We all have things that we can't do because of what our personalities are, and that's totally okay. Don't be angry with yourself about it. Just look for something else. And there are definitely, like Lorelai said, other ways to help.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also like a learning curve, right? Like, I actually, I did the same. I actually did an abortion doula training a few years ago with Alyssa. And I'm going to be taking another one just as a refresher soon, especially as it pertains to like digital security. And I found out after that training, and after like starting to like wade into to that field of support, that like for me, for my own personal trauma and for my own triggers, I cannot support patients during surgical abortion. It becomes there is a moment at which it becomes too difficult for me to hold space and center the patient's experience. And so I know now, and like that's something you can't learn. That's something you can't know until you're in it, right? And so I know now I have to pivot and be like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. This is where I'm at right now. This is where my efforts are best directed right now. And so I think the other thing is like, I think it changes, it can fluctuate, and that's okay.
That's a really good point. And Alyssa, in the time we have left, could you talk about what an abortion doula is? Because I'm with you, Lorelai. Like that kind of that's a line that like that's a little too close. Like I could deal with the people screaming in my face, but yeah, that's yeah. But Alyssa, you're the superhero wearing that cape. Can you tell us what an abortion doula is?
Yeah. So an abortion doula is someone who helps a person getting an abortion, whether it's via pill or via surgical procedure, through the procedure as they're able to. So for some clinics, you can be there with the patient. In places like Planned Parenthood, you absolutely cannot.
No.
So for something like Planned Parenthood, you're there with them in the waiting room. You're with them when they're getting the information about, sorry, my dryer just went off. You're with them when they're speaking with the doctor or nurse practitioner, and you're there with them after the procedure as they go through it. So it is something that you have to be very good at holding space for other people's emotions. Yeah. My mother is a therapist, so I think I just grew up with understanding how to do that. But yeah, it's really not for everyone. It gets really deep. Yeah. Keep in mind that a lot of the people that are seeking doulas for their abortions are people with wanted pregnancies that didn't go the way they should have. Yeah. So, or the way they wanted them to. So there is a lot of emotion. There is a lot of really just reassuring people that the choice that they made is the right choice. So you have to sort of be able to do that. But yeah, if you're someone who's really good at sort of just being there for someone else while they're going through an emotional process, I would definitely recommend it. It's probably the most rewarding work I've ever done in my entire life.
Wow.
But yeah, some of it is they're taking the pill, and you know, when you take the pill, it causes you to really miscarry. So you're with them in their house, sort of wiping their brow as they're going through it, because there is some pain with it. They get painkillers, of course. But it really depends on the clinic and what the procedure is. But you're really there as an emotional and physical support for them.
And so if someone's seeking that, you had mentioned earlier, you can Google, what would you Google for your area? How would I find a doula, an abortion doula?
So you can actually find one through Access.
Okay.
I would recommend doing it that way. I was doing it through a separate group that hasn't posted in a really long time. So I've gotten in touch with other groups to see how it's going to work. So stay tuned for that. I'll give you more information as I find out. But yeah, you can go through groups like Access and they'll help you find one.
That's great. Okay.
And you deserve one. You absolutely deserve one. So there are plenty of us who are doing this for free. Some people do charge for loss work. I do not. So you deserve to have someone with you during any surgical procedure. I've had other surgeries where, thank God, the nurse was there to help me, because I come out of anesthesia sobbing, apparently. Yeah. So like you deserve to have someone, whether this pregnancy was something that you were looking forward to or not. It's great to have that support. So I would definitely see if you could get one if it's something that you would like to have.
Thanks for saying that. You deserve one. A friend of mine that I used to work with, she had a miscarriage and she had a choice, but she did the pill at home, and it was really traumatic. And it was like, I learned about this afterwards, and it was like, just hearing about what you were sharing, like I would have loved for her to have had a doula if that would have been an option for her. Cause yeah, it's can be physically painful, and it was a wanted pregnancy that just didn't go the course that would have been viable. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna dry my tears. And a really quick, I think, recap is we covered a lot of ground here. One is, if you are in need of abortion care and you're in a place where the laws are against you, still reach out to your local clinic. They can perhaps provide you with some resources to get to where you go. We're also going to put some links in here on how to identify good places to talk to and how to weed out, you know, someone who may be faking it, someone who may be taking on one of these camping trips we talked about that are not safe. And really, so from the perspective of the patient, how to stay safe. And then also from the perspective of an ally, again, it sounds like we're really advocating for tried and true organizations that have a vetting process. So if you want to join that, either as a patient or an ally, that's the way to go. And then I just really love the conversation that you all brought up in terms of there's a lot of ways to support people. It could be by posting something. It could be by being an escort or a driver or a doula. But just really acknowledging what you all did, which is there's an emotional toll, really, and skill that one has to have in any of these roles. And so make sure you're finding the right one for you. And no matter what your experience or skill is, there's a place for you in this, right? Again, we're not gatekeeping on telling people where they should go, but just like really giving people a heads up so they know what to expect and they don't get overwhelmed. So what did I miss? You all are so brilliant.
I would just say, for patients who need care right now, who are looking for care in states that have bans, when you are searching for your local abortion fund, or when that person, you know, when you are searching for clinics in neighboring states, please do so using a secure web browser, yes, using DuckDuckGo, with a VPN preferably. if you can get one, and double check that the VPN company you're using doesn't sell their information to data farmers. And when you are communicating about getting this care, please do so via Signal or Proton Mail for email.
That's great. Thank you. Anything else, Alyssa, before we go?
No, just I don't want people to completely lose hope. That's not helping us move forward. This is a really hard time right now for all of us, and take some time to grieve and take some time to feel bad, and that's totally okay. But now's the time when we do the work. So once you're done, we'll never be done grieving, but once you feel like you're in a space where you can help and you can give that part of yourself, please do. This movement needs all the help that it can get. And if you need help finding out where to go, I'm sure any of us would be happy to direct you in the right place. Just know that you're not alone, and we'll get through this together.
Wow. Oh, you're muted, Lorelei.
Just to briefly throw out something that I heard Gloria Steinem say a couple of days ago, most revolutions were not started by people obeying laws. Most revolutions were started by people breaking them, especially when they were not just. Right. So just going to leave that there.
Right. Well, and just to piggyback on that, just the entire interpretation for those of you who are reading the opinion itself is very much based, in my opinion, as a non-lawyer, well, basically women have never had rights in this country, so why the hell should we give it to them now? And so, it's not a matter of what the law is, it's like, do we have just laws? So I'm feeling a little fired up. So thank you all for coming on and really helping me channel my own energy, right? And hopefully channeling the energies of folks who are out there looking, either that need help or that need support from y'all who have been in the trenches for a long time. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sorry we lost MB. MB
Yes.
is amazing. They are just like one of my heroes. So,
and they're also doing a lot of really great work at like other intersections, or at intersections of other communities that need abortion care. And I think they are a great example of just like intersectional activism, because reproductive justice is housing justice, is economic justice, is environmental justice, etc.
Right. It's not isolated. It's not that's why this is so important, because rich people will always get their abortions.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we end on that note?
Sure. Yeah, again, if anyone is seeing this, please reach out. If you need help with anything, we can help you get to the right place. Don't go camping with strangers on Facebook.
Words to live by.
Amen.